So, welcome to Radio Shields Northeast. Deep, thank you so much for coming on tonight. This is our Christmas special today, and all month we've been talking about a conscious Christmas. And what I meant by a conscious Christmas was a drug and alcohol-free Christmas. And we've been talking about the reality of life in our modern society, and how, particularly at this time of year, there's a lot of parties, there's a lot of events to go to. And, you know, for many of us, that means that there's a lot of alcohol around. And for many of us, that means there's a lot of other substances around too. And we sort of, over the past month, we've been talking about how we're kind of looking, we're more interested in well-being now. And a lot of people are looking to step into that conscious movement and be free. Drug-free, alcohol-free, have that beautiful clarity of mind, and actually take care of ourselves much more effectively. So a lot of people are just naturally choosing to have that conscious kind of lifestyle. And other people who haven't are sort of really thinking about moving towards it. And I know that you've just had this amazing life experience, because obviously you've written this book called A New York Kind of Love. It's your memoir, if you like, and it's to give it a kind of brief overview. It's the story of how your life seemed perfect to those people, you know, looking in. You moved to New York, super exciting. You were doing really, really well with your career. You had all the clothes you wanted. You had the lifestyle you wanted, but you only had to scratch the surface to kind of get to actually the underneath bit, which was quite serious misery and quite a serious drug. Cocaine in particular habit. Tell me a little bit about what was life like for you on a daily basis back then.
Yeah, I mean, that was a perfect summary of what was going on. Yeah, I felt like, you know, I'd lived in London, I'd been living in London, and suddenly I got this opportunity to move to New York. And I was really living that lifestyle that I felt everyone wanted to be me. Everyone, I feel aspires to having that life where you've got, not everyone, but, you know, there's this idea, this story that when you have, you know, the money, you know, six figures, you're in New York City, you're at the top of your game, you've got friends, you've got party lifestyle. And that's the life that I was trying to portray to myself and everyone else on social media. You know, like, this is me. I was just desperately trying to be happy ultimately. And the truth is, I wasn't really trying to have all these things. They kind of came to me quite effortlessly. You know, I worked really, really hard at my job and everything, but I was just really, really gifted by the universe, you know, by God. And I felt I didn't even realize at the time how much I was being given. And the sad part is that, you know, what I really, really wanted deep down beneath everything was really, I wanted a connection. I just wanted to feel like I was happy. I wanted to know real friendships. I wanted love. I wanted the stuff you see in the movies. You know, I just was really, really unhappy. And I wasn't even aware that's what I was wanting. I just knew that I just felt this void in my life all the time. Yeah.
I was talking with Kirsty Elliott, who's an EFT practitioner, earlier, and she was saying about how she used to use alcohol because she felt uncomfortable in social situations, so that alcohol would kind of help her feel comfortable in social situations. She used to have times where she felt alone, and alcohol would kind of take away that feeling of loneliness. But she very much kind of expressed this kind of idea, or this kind of feeling of a void, or a certain kind of emptiness, an unfulfilledness, a disconnected feeling from yourself, and that was why she chose to drink alcohol a long time ago now, but that's why she chose to drink. Would you say that was something really similar with your sort of relationship, that negative relationship with substances?
Definitely. I mean, I never thought I had a problem with alcohol until it became a problem mixed, you know, with drugs and other things. So I was definitely using cocaine on a daily basis to sort of numb the pain of being alone. you know, absolutely. There were so many different reasons, but the main one was to numb that feeling of being alone. And I would use cocaine and alcohol quite heavily in my apartment in New York City while no one else was there. I didn't know anyone else really. I had friends, but they weren't always there. They weren't always there for me. Friends were back home. We weren't really in touch because of the time difference, and I'd moved, and it seemed like I'd moved, and everyone had forgotten. And I just didn't know how to form real friendships because I was actually really quite insecure and quite shy. So
Mm.
I found very, very early on that, okay, when I drink, it's easy for me to go out and socialize. When I have cocaine, I'm really, really energetic. I don't care about anything. I'm not bothered by being lonely. It just numbed this feeling. It meant I was just invincible in my
Mhm.
eyes. So I would just find it easier to be okay with being alone. And
Mm.
that's really what I was doing. I was alone. I was just deeply alone. I didn't know how to fill my time. I didn't know how to fill that void that I was experiencing. And now I see that now I've taken away all those substances. Like you're saying, people who go in for like this dry January or the conscious Christmas. I love that, by the way.
Yeah.
It's you really start to become aware of why you're drinking, why you do use alcohol, or whatever that substance is, or even smoking cigarettes, because you'll notice, as I noticed, that actually I
Mm.
was feeling this void of, I feel really uncomfortable around my friends. Now that's a strange thing, isn't it? I feel
Mm.
uncomfortable around my friends. I can't speak to them without having something in me. Like, it's uncomfortable. I can't go on a date
Mm.
without needing something, and when you take it away, you start to see, okay, this is why I'm using. This is why I've been using.
Yeah, I can relate to that uncomfortable feeling. I described it to my friends as I felt uncomfortable in my own skin.
Mm,
Like I was uncomfortable in my body. I was uncomfortable being myself. And when I had a few drinks, I meant I could feel more comfortable. And I've had so many conversations with people recently where they've said, I love dancing, but there's no way that I'm getting on the dance floor until I've had a few drinks. Or I love singing, but I'm not doing that karaoke until I've had a few drinks. And it's almost like that alcohol, that substance connects them to the person they want to be almost. And it's really quite sad that in
yeah.
this day and age, to enjoy ourselves, we need to have we need some kind of mind altering substance that, let's face it, is really not healthy for our body. It's toxic poison for our system, for our physical bodies. And I have no misconception that these substances are also really bad for your brain, your
Yeah.
mind. But I think there's a certain spiritual connection as well, or disconnection, when people are using substances. Because I know, for you have a very deep spiritual practice. Tell me a
Yeah.
little bit about your spiritual practice.
Oh my gosh, that's such a tricky question, because I don't even know if I would call it a practice anymore. But spiritually, I think a lot of people experience a spiritual awakening when they give up drugs or alcohol.
Mm-hmm.
I'd never heard of this before. So when I finally gave up drugs, I moved from cocaine to prescriptions, and I asked for help, and I was really finally at a point where I was really ready to give up. And that takes a lot of time for anyone out there listening, when you're really ready to put something down and say, actually, I've had enough. I'd had enough accidental overdoses, and it was my final last one. And I said, right, God, if there is a God, I was literally like, God, please help me. I was already in tune with the universe, but I didn't know where else to turn. And when I said those words, God, please help me, I was becoming quite spiritual, or in tune with, the other beings in the universe, or, the spirit realm, or angels or mediums, that kind of thing. And I started to see then, like, all these, and call it psychosis or not, like, I don't know what to call it, but now I'm completely drug free for several years now. I can see and feel that it's not that, but I just felt the whole this energy of the universe and these beings moving around me, and it was almost like they were saying, we've come here to help you. And then from that moment on, I started to really notice the signs that I was getting from the universe, and then I really started to have a relationship with God, which is another name for me for the universe, or um spirit, or source, guidance. And God is something or someone that I've created a special relationship with. And I see that as, like, this higher power, this source that's within me and within all of us. Some may call it intuition. So if you've ever felt like you have guidance, you feel like a nudge to do something, or everyone has a psychic intuition, which I have developed quite strongly, when you can sense or feel or even hear or understand what other people are thinking. And so for me, the spiritual practice is really just really getting in tune with my inner being, that guidance system, that GPS within all of us, which is, to me, is the power of the spirit of the universe speaking through me. And I connect with that daily.
Yeah, for me, that sounds like you're just really being your authentic self. You're really just being this beautiful version of you, the version of you that you're meant to be. And finally you found a way to be comfortable as you in your own skin, that authentic you. And that just sounds so far away from where you were. How bad did it get for you before you called for help?
I mean, it was quite bad for me personally. I mean, I've always been such a hard worker in my job that for me to have, like a rock bottom, as people call it, or a slap in the face, was really that time when everything that I wanted and worked so hard for was about to come crashing down, and was coming crashing down on me. So I'd already, I was using heavily. I was using prescriptions now. I wasn't sleeping for several days on end. I was never slipping in my job, my performance, because I was so good at that. And that was something I managed to stay very high functioning in. But I would black out. I wouldn't be able to get to work. I would self-harm, or I would be overdosing by mistake. I would be taking far too many and then, not being able to move, or vomiting. I started to see things. I started to hallucinate. I was seeing ghosts and demons, and I was having like night terrors. I was panicked all the time. I couldn't even stay in my own apartment. I had to, at the time, run my ex's house, and I was like, I just could hear these voices, and I knew there were things in my apartment, and I was really afraid. And that still wasn't enough. It was really one accidental overdose too many, and then realizing that I had no one or nothing. I think I realized that I had this job that was killing me from the inside out. I could see that I was doing everything I could to keep this job, and to keep this job meant I was probably selling my soul. I wasn't sleeping. I was doing everything I could to stay in this job, and eating these prescriptions, which were helping me be more focused, right? And I was also destroying the job. So when I couldn't get to work anymore, I was blacking out. I felt really ashamed, to be honest, at work, that this was happening. And then on top of that, I was overdosing quite heavily, and I was keeping it all a big secret, and from everyone. And I'd lost another relationship, and I felt like I just had enough. And I'd had enough of that feeling of constantly chasing that high, and then experiencing like almost like a panic attack, because every time I took all these pills, and I was overdosing because I was trying to reach this point. I don't know, your body, it's like a disease, your body just wants to keep reaching for more. And then it would just mean my heart was like, like I was having a panic attack or something. My heart would be beating fast. I'd try and mix it with sleeping pills or stuff to try and I just couldn't do it anymore. I couldn't function. And my way out was just really shouting and asking for help. And soon after that, literally like days after that, I quit my job as well. I just had enough. I just had enough of the cycle, and I couldn't do it anymore.
It just sounds like your world was very dark, very filled with fear, filled with guilt, filled with anxiety and panic. And I don't know how you managed to keep your head above water at work, but it does just feel like you were drowning in that utter misery at that time. And whatever it was that caused you to cry out, in your case, to God for help. I have actually read a few other really similar stories, and spoken to a few other people who just got to that point where they thought, if I don't stop now, I'm going to die. I've had enough. I want to end my life. And there's something within them that just wants to keep them going, keep them alive, keep them breathing, keep them on this planet. Perhaps they're here for some kind of reason, and they've just gone, God, help me. and
Yeah.
and something amazing has happened, and they've had some kind of an eye-opening, or like a spiritual awakening, like you were saying, and then that's been the beginning of a whole new life. What was it like when you first got clean and sober?
Um, well, I wouldn't use the word clean and sober anymore. Well, use the word sober. I won't use the word clean anymore. I'm going to say drug free,
Drug free.
because
All
you
right.
try and encourage people not to feel like they're clean. Not to correct you or
Okay.
anything, but
No,
that's just
no, please do. It's good to have
change
that
the language.
understanding. Yeah, it's an old fashioned kind
Yeah.
of a terminology, isn't it? So drug free, drug and
So
alcohol.
yeah, taking away the stigma is drug free. I'll be completely honest with you, okay, because it was extremely hard at first to be. And look, for the first couple of years, it's been extremely hard, because I think when you've been on, and I think this is really important to say, because I felt no one really shared this with me either. And now that I help other people in recovery through my job, my career, I actually feel like I'm doing a disservice if I don't share this with people, because it's important. Otherwise, people tend to think that they failed because they feel this way, and then that just worsens that cycle, and they might go back to drugs, okay, and because they feel like, what's the point? But it felt like, because I'd been on such a high, then to come back down to earth with such a crashing low, whilst the first few weeks and months were brilliant and amazing, because I was so empowered and I felt like I had God behind me and the universe was really supporting me. There was this dip, this low. The only way I can best describe it is because, your body's still adjusting to that level of dopamine, so you've been way up here, now you're way down here, and it's like this big crash. And it felt like for a really long time that I was just being buried underground. Like I was just constantly like low mood, depressed. I couldn't connect with anyone or anything. I felt like, I don't want to put doom and gloom on this, because it's obviously it depends on the level that you're drinking or using. I was using a
Mm-hmm.
very high level of stimulants. And so it took a while for me to actually really reconnect with people again. And there's like a cycle of, disassociation, I think it's called depersonalization. You feel separate from reality. You feel like nothing is worth it or worthwhile. You feel like you can't make friendships again. You don't understand why people even, want to talk to you or want to have friends, or you completely lose sense of reality. And I
Mm.
think that's really important to say if you are coming off of something, particularly like
Yeah.
I did, pretty much cold turkey, which is never advised.
No.
Um, and so there was this real low period to start with, and then going through recovery, I feel like there are stages of recovery, and now I feel like really enlightened and really grateful that I'm no longer stuck in that cycle of addiction. And anytime I feel like, I'm missing out on things, I only have to really remind myself, okay, it's great to do these shows that I do all the time. It's great to read the
Mm.
books and write the books, because it reminds me that I'm not stuck in that cycle anymore of that depression, addiction, because it just keeps going.
Mm.
And the two come hand in hand. It's like mental
Mm.
health, anxiety, depression often will come with that, because you're not just changing the chemical imbalance, but it's most likely that the addiction is hiding something, is covering something up.
Mm.
Um, so I feel so much better now, and I
Mm.
feel so much more like clarity. I work towards my goals. I don't have hangovers. I have weekends and evenings. I've achieved so many things. Like I've written books, so it's amazing. I'm helping others. So I achieved so much now, but I just wanted to say that it can be really tough, even if you are coming off something like sugar or alcohol, for the conscious Christmas. If you're feeling a bit of a low period, I want you to just keep going and
Mm.
know that you are going from a high level of dopamine. Maybe you're still on that natural high of, oh, hey, I've given up, if you're feeling empowered. However, not
Yeah.
everyone is going to feel that way. So
No, not at all. Somebody once described it to me, that low point that you were describing before, like as life was fun and fun and fun, and then it became fun and fun and problems, and then it became fun and problems and problems, and then it was all just problems at the end. And on all the fun bits of kind of the using, the drinking, the partying, all the fun bits were gone, and all that they were left with was a massive pile of problems. And I thought that it's a kind of a slow wearing away of who you are, your identity. It's a slow quite a slow theft of your joy, of your relationships with friends and family. And I do think if anyone's listening who does feel like they're using any substance at all that is stealing anything away from them, whether it's their health, whether it's their sanity, whether it's their relationships in life, anything that we need that's human, if that's being kind of eroded away by the use of anything, then I think people need to check in and perhaps do what you did and reach out and ask for help. So it's so exciting to have you here, because I know that you've got this amazing program now that you've put together, and you have completely not only turned your own life around, but you're actually just massively helping and supporting other people. Tell me a little bit more about your can I call it a program? Can I call it your like a recovery program? Or tell me more about how the
Yeah,
support that you provide for people.
I mean, break free from addictions is the best name I have for the program right now. I'll call it a program quite loosely, because what I've learned in recovery is everyone's journey is different. However, there are certain steps along the way that every person can benefit from. So when I work with someone one-on-one, and this is in my private practice, because I do also work full time in recovery now as well, but I also have a private practice, and I will use spiritual principles and techniques. So I will hone in to the energy of the person that I'm with one-on-one, and I will know and understand what that person is feeling, because a lot of the time someone in addiction is disconnected from their feelings, so it helps that I can guide them through the process. I will help them uncover, rather than focusing on addiction itself, which is what a lot of addiction programs are doing, which is completely fine and okay. In my personal practice, I wouldn't necessarily be focused on, okay, right, we're going to look at reducing your alcohol consumption or something. I will understand the person and the problem that they're having. So there's always a reason that person has picked up and started using. And for me, it's about repairing that relationship with that thing, that void, that issue, that symptom. So for example, for me, it was that loneliness. Okay, so I was trying to fill this void of loneliness. The first time I picked up and used cocaine was actually to fill this void of social anxiety, missing from, and there was a part of recklessness as well, but ultimately I was self-medicating for the fact that I was lonely, that I had no purpose. So that was ingrained in there, and it's about teaching that person to become really self-aware about, okay, why have I manifested this addiction? Because it's manifested because it's a symptom of a greater cause. I see addiction as the substance, as like a band-aid or a plaster for something that's wounded. So I'll take that person through a journey to understand, okay, where did this come from? Why am I still using? That's the most important thing, the awareness. Okay, I'll help them find out of their ultimate vision of why is it that they actually want to give up, what is going to actually empower them to want to give up, and what are they working towards? Because I see it as a one-step awareness, finding out why you're doing this, and then what is it that you want to work towards, and what is going to make you want to work towards that thing. Because addiction isn't just about stopping, it's about often wanting to move from the place that you're in. So when it gets so uncomfortable, so painful, when you finally feel like, I've had enough of this pain, I want to reach for something more. And it's really a dance with me, between yourself. And if you're doing this yourself, it's like, okay, why did I start using, and what is it that I want from my life, and how do I get from here to there? And for every person it's different. So in recovery, it may take several years before someone actually is ready to take that leap, before they are aware that actually this is a problem for me, but I'm not really ready. It's not painful enough. I don't have enough to work towards yet. So it's kind of a dance. It's not a fixed program in that sense, because that person may need 12 weeks, 4 months, and that does happen. Some people take years. I've worked with someone for over a year, and they've kind of gone through the dance, and I can see it. They're still not quite ready, but the desire is built. The desire for a better life is building. But if you think how long it's taken for someone to build up this addiction, sometimes people I work with have had them for longer than I've been alive. 35 plus years, and it takes time to help that person really believe in themselves to want more from their life, as it's not always easy.
Yeah, I don't think anybody starts taking drugs and thinking that I think I'm going to take this every day. This is a really good idea. I don't think anybody ever wants to do that. I think same as with people who smoke. I don't think I know anyone who smokes who really wants to smoke, because everybody knows how bad it is for them. It's just that relationship that they have with that drug, with it be a cigarette, whether it be sugar, whether it be alcohol, it's a pain reliever, isn't it? It has a rapid pain relieving effect, or it helps you, it helps to take you away from that negative situation really quickly, like the cigarette break. Oh, I'm really stressed at work, I need to have a cigarette break. That cigarette break becomes so valuable and so important, because you get to down tools, walk away from the stressful situation and take some nice deep breaths. And that kind of smoking breath that you do is very similar to a mindfulness breath. So you kind of like get in the drug, the dopamine hit, in addition to some nice deep breathing whilst walking away from the stressful situation. Who doesn't want that? It's a very difficult thing to recognize. I think if you can do what you say and recognize what's at the root of it, is it the fact that I'm surrounded by stressful situations? Is it that there's something that's happened to me that's been a massive trauma, and it's caused me that wound, it's caused that injury to me, and I'm looking for a band-aid, and that band-aid can come in any kind of form of a substance. So yeah, I think that your approach to almost like not even really thinking about the substance, but thinking
We'd never
about
do.
the wound
Yeah.
that's causing people to abuse that substance, or to overuse it, or to just take it at all. I think that's absolutely amazing. So
Yeah.
go on, sorry.
No, I was just saying, we rarely talk about the substance, and people have said to me, "Oh, I thought I came in here, I have one to lose weight. I thought I came in here to lose weight, stop eating so much or sugar." And we haven't talked about it once. I'm like, yeah, I know, because actually you're holding on to this belief that, you are feeling guilty about something that happened in your childhood or is happening now that you're not letting go of. And that's why you're still abusing food, without
Yes.
going into detail. But that's just one example.
Yeah, exactly. And whichever substance we reach for, if it's giving us a release of dopamine, that's going to give us a lovely reward feeling, isn't it? It's the reward chemical. If it's releasing oxytocin, it's the love chemical. If it's releasing serotonin, it's the happiness chemical. If it's a nice combination of all three, which a lot of these drugs do kind of have that, I guess it's a great pain reliever for any wound situation. And I think it's great to be able to recognize loneliness, or recognize pain, and look at ways to heal. So your work is really about helping people to overcome emotional pain, or
Yeah.
tell me a little bit more about the kind of the philosophy, if you like, behind your program.
Yeah, so you said it, really well. I struggle to find a name for it, but it's trauma therapy for
Okay.
addictions is a huge part of it. So you may develop unconscious beliefs very, very early on. I know Gabor Mate, some big renowned addictions speaker and specialist, and he talks about it as well. And this is kind of the spiritual aspect of this. So if you can imagine that even early as in the womb, Gabor Mate actually backs this up with science, which is amazing.
I love it when science catches up with something.
Exactly, I know, it's perfect. And what he's sharing is how babies in the womb during the Holocaust, himself included, when the babies were born, they couldn't stop crying, and his mother went to the doctor and said, my baby won't stop crying. I don't understand why. And the doctor said to her, well, what do you want me to do? All the Jewish babies are crying right now. And what was happening was that, the babies were feeling the energy of the mothers, and they were feeling unsafe. And again, Gabor Mate backs this up, but he talks about, and I'll share what I talk about. He talks about how when that if that baby very, very early on, if they're even in the womb, if they felt that energy of their mother, if their mother was stressed, even if she seemed happy to everyone, if she was really just disconnected from life, depressed or anxious, even if she was really trying with her child, and this is not to add any shame or judgment on any mother out there. I just want to say that because, you know, we're all
Yeah.
humans.
We all do the
Okay.
best that we can with the resources that we've got, don't we?
Exactly.
And we give love abundantly, and sometimes it's just not. It's not perfect because we're
It's not,
not
yeah.
perfect. We're works in progress.
Exactly. And I hate saying that sometimes because I don't ever want anyone to feel like it was their fault, because it's not. And really what's all that's happening is, you know, this child has made an unconscious decision that the world is not safe.
Mm.
And that's where we'll go back to in a process that I use. It's like experiential healing. And in that process, we'll go back to that point in time in the womb where you first made that decision that you didn't belong in the world or that you weren't safe. And that can start really, really early on in childhood, early as the womb. And that's when we start actually forming our identity and making our decisions about life. And if you felt very early on that you did not get, you know, your mother didn't stroke you or cuddle you enough, you know, as much as a child is needed, science has backed that up with, you know, Gabor Mate's excellent book The Realm of Hungry Ghosts. He goes in depth there about it, and how that can cause an unconscious reaction later in life. So that person finds it much harder to cope with stress than the average human being who received abundant love and affection. You know, it's perfect in my household too, because, you know, my mum had postnatal depression with me, you know, whereas my older sister, she didn't. And, you know, it was me and my sibling that actually experienced the addictive personalities and behaviors, right? Not to say my older sister didn't, not, you know, have her own fair share of problems, but we did develop that addictive personality, you know, the two of us. So it really shows that how that just small things very, very early on can actually cause that later down the line. And then what I do is I will empower people to not only get the awareness of why this is happening, that actually it's an unconscious thing that's continually repeating in their lives, and they will need to start noticing the pattern. And I'll use like a process called experiential healing. It's kind of like almost like a meditation where I'll take them back, I'll have them connect with their body. And Duke Sayer has created this wonderful process, and you can find him online as well. I think he's now called the Sayer Method Institute. And in that, we go back to the point in time, or have that person relive the scene or the memory that it's still manifesting whatever they're feeling in this moment. So, you know, the addiction can manifest because they felt lonely as a child, and it will manifest in lots of different unconscious ways. And maybe at first they didn't pick up a drug, but maybe first they picked up a cigarette, you know, to deal with the stress, when they realized that they couldn't self-soothe, you know, if they were crying. And later in life, when they keep feeling that same feeling of unworthiness or not belonging, later along the line, they will start using other things like alcohol and cigarettes. And really what we're trying to do is release those decisions that, you know, that the world isn't safe, that I'm on my own, that I need to drink or use alcohol or drugs to fill this void. And a lot of the time, even though it's happening now, sometimes we need to go back there to that childhood experience and actually just release that pain, that emotion, that trauma from the body, because it just keeps manifesting later in life. So I don't know if you're following, but, you know, if earlier
Yeah,
on your mum,
absolutely.
yeah, so so those of you listening, if early on, say your mum was leave you in a room age 3 years old, you may have said to yourself, oh my gosh, I'm so alone, no one loves me, I just don't belong in this world. And you'll actually make those decisions. And
Mm.
then next time you're in a room on your own, you associate that with, oh my gosh, I'm on my own. Next time you're in a room, for me, I would be in my, you know, apartment in New York City. A lot of people may come and walk in the door and then unconsciously light up a cigarette. Now you could call that a habit, and sometimes it is, but actually, if you go back to that point in time and what you're feeling, and if you watch yourself, if you say, what am I feeling right now? Why do I think I need this cigarette? Why do I need this alcohol? And actually, if you were to really tune in, you might find there's something else going on. You can ask yourself, what is happening? How old was I when I first felt this way? And you will find that there will be something else. Like, actually, I feel really lonely because my mum used to leave me on my own a lot. Now, when I'm in a room on my own, it reminds me of how lonely I feel.
Mm.
And that's just a really simple example.
Yeah, and I guess a lot of these sensations and feelings and emotions will be unconscious as well. You'll just be having these quite dark or quite negative thoughts and feelings and not know where they're coming from, because it could be from the womb or it could be from very early in childhood. And it, these thoughts and feelings and behaviors may be a result of something that's happened quite early in childhood that you don't remember. You have no recollection of at all, or it could be an accumulation of negative things that happened as you were growing and developing. So yeah, I love the idea of going back and kind of taking the pain out of those situations that happened to you, those things that happened to you, either whether you remember them and they're conscious things, or whether you don't remember them and they're unconscious reactions, kind of really dealing with that. I guess if you take the pain away and the wound is healed, the desire to use will be far
Yeah.
far less, if not even gone at all, which is exactly where you want to be, isn't it?
Yeah. And
Yeah.
we'll release it in four levels. So there's like the emotional pain, which is
Yeah.
the feeling in the body, that you're experiencing at the time. The physical feeling in the body. So emotion is carried in the physical body. So the person will physically release by crying often most of the time. It
Mm.
will actually help release that from the body, because we may have not been an expressed feeling or whatever. To release that
Mm.
trauma, we release it intellectually. So we
Yeah.
release it so that person is aware of it. Because when you
Process
do
it. Mm.
Yeah, because when you do Reiki and things, whilst it does work, I'm a big ambassador of all kinds of spiritual all healing.
Yeah.
This gives them the added awareness of actually what's happening, so that person's
Mm.
able to actually then release it in their mind as well, because they intellectually can say, "Oh yeah, this is where it's coming from."
Mm.
And then the spiritual part I see is as the higher power, source guidance that guides me. So I work with my intuition, so I can feel and where that energy of that person is coming from, and we'll have spiritual guidance actually taking us to the right place
Mm.
that is needed for that person at that point of time. So there's
Yeah.
four different levels that we release it from.
I see that spiritual dimension as a reconnection with yourself as well.
Yeah.
I think sometimes that guide, that God, that being, whatever you want to call it, maybe might be kind of too super spiritual for a lot of people, but actually it's just the part of you that knows how to take care of you, or the part of you that knows what's the right decision to make. That part of you that sometimes gets quieter when you're making negative or unhealthy choices. It's that voice, that kind of inner connection, that bit of you that knows what's right, that sense of self, and that sense that you know who you are and you know what's good and
Yeah.
what's not good, and that sense of that kind of energy, that higher energy, but within you, as opposed to some kind of external force. And I think that's what meditation can do as well, isn't it? That process
Yeah.
of reconnecting you to yourself as well.
Yeah, and it's always within you. So you could call it your subconscious or your unconscious mind
Yeah.
guiding you.
Yeah, I like unconscious mind. I like subconscious mind. I think that works better for my theory.
Yeah.
But I totally get the idea of it being
Whatever works.
God
Yeah.
or a guide or something else. I mean, yeah, exactly. Whatever works. It's a beautiful healing process, and you just look radiantly healthy. I'm doing this interview over
Thank you.
Zoom, so can't see Deep Space, but I can. And she just absolutely glows with health and beauty. Life now, what's it like? Life now.
Life is truly amazing now, Amanda. I feel like we've come to talk at the exact perfect right moment in time, because even you saying how radiant I look is a stark difference to how I looked when I first came off the drugs and alcohol and cigarettes and methamphetamine and cocaine. Like, I was a different person visually as well. My
Yeah.
face was different. I was malnourished. I had holes in my face that I'd been picking from. It's basically like crystal meth I was using, but in prescription, right? I looked very, very different. So thank you very much. It's a really nice reflection. But
Yeah.
life is really, really good. I feel, and I can just say this honestly, having lived with depression for a long, long time, probably most of my life. Now I feel like I've conquered it completely, meaning I just feel like I just choose to feel the joy in every moment. And I know that sounds like a cliche, and I
Mm.
used to hate it when people said that to me, but I really understand what that means. I just, no matter what's happening around, no matter how hard things are going, I just have now learned to choose a better feeling thought about the moment I'm in. So even though life can still get me down, I won't turn to substances anymore.
Mm.
Um, if I ever do turn to something that I'm not happy with, and if I was ever to, I wouldn't judge myself, because I would always see it as a lesson, as a learning. And I think that's really important to say as well. You know, I'm not perfect. I'm doing the best that I can, and I'm not here to sell a perfect story to anybody.
No.
You know, I make.
I love how you have such a beautiful acceptance of being imperfect.
Mhm.
I think that's part of it, isn't it? Sometimes we can't be perfect. Sometimes we can't do everything 100% right. Sometimes things do not go our way and we're running late, or things have broken down, or things are not happening. And I love that you have this kind of really calm acceptance of, okay, well, it's not exactly how we want it, but life's still beautiful.
Yeah,
And that just it feels joyous, and it feels full of gratitude as well. Would you
definitely.
say, yeah, would you say
And
that that's how you felt on a daily basis now, kind of joyful?
absolutely. And the joy is really around, even if something doesn't work out. If, for example, today, I was late driving to work and I was parking my car somewhere. And I didn't know why I couldn't find a space, you know, and I was like, I can't find a space. This is really bad. I'm going to be late. You know, I choose to let that go as soon as I just surrender and say, okay, there's a really good reason why I'm late today. There's a really good reason why I couldn't find a parking space. And then it didn't make sense until later in the day, when I just happened to be walking home from work with someone from work who wanted to walk me home. And we had this really lovely, we were trying to go for a coffee, we didn't, but we had this really lovely time. And actually it was so perfect that my car was parked where it was, because it meant that we would have that extra time, and a funny joke as well, because I couldn't remember where I parked. And and I just, you know, and it was so perfect because we'd just been talking about synchronicity. And I just knew that, okay, there's a reason for this. There's always a reason for this. And there is, doesn't mean it's always, you know, everything's always working out for me. I believe everything's always working out for me, even if it's not, doesn't seem to be going my way. If I missed a conversation with someone, I wasn't meant to have that conversation.
Mm.
There was a reason. You know, I'm running late. Well, that meant I got to talk to someone that I would never normally speak to, and I brought some joy into their life, or vice
Mm.
versa. So that's what I mean when I say I find the joy in everything. You know, I see that, okay, this is pain right now. Maybe I'll, you know, lose someone, you know, God forbid, or a friend, or, you know, there's a gift in everything. And maybe the
Mm.
gift was to learn how to love again, you know. And I don't mean to say this is like one size fits all overnight miracle change. And I'm never going to say to anybody, oh, you need to think positive. And, you know, that's not the case. It's just, you will eventually come to a place where you start to feel like you will just want to be in more joy, and start to just choose a better feeling thought than you're in right now. So,
Mm.
and that just comes with practice, and it's taken 2.5 years to get to this point. So
Mhm.
I'm sure for
So
other people,
it's not a quick journey,
never.
but it's definitely one that's really really worth it. So if somebody's listening to this show today, and they are using, or their life is resonating with your story, they can hear the similarities in your story to what's happening in their life right now. What would be your kind of your biggest, or your best bit of advice for those people listening?
I would say it's very personal to you for a start, and listen to the story and see what resonates with you. But then look inside yourself and think, okay, you know, when did I first start feeling this way? When did I first start using? What was I doing at the time? And start to get the awareness around like why you're here.
Mm.
Because often when you're in it, you can be so far in it, it doesn't make sense. It just feels like a habit. And that's the same with smoking cigarettes, right? And anything that we just feel, and I think people can resonate with that, or drinking. You know, I've done it all my life. I don't know why I do it. We'll go back to that first time that you started doing it. Start to learn more about yourself and become self aware.
Mm.
That's the very first thing I would do, is find out where it all came from, because it will have come from somewhere.
Mm.
And then keep doing that, keep going on that self-awareness journey. Why do I do this thing? When did I first start feeling this way? So it's
Mm-hmm.
really about finding that first time. If I was to give you
Yeah.
the first time that you started using, why am I doing this?
Yeah. I mean, with smoking, it's a lot to do with self-esteem, isn't it? You know, you want to be in the cool gang, or with drugs, you're at university or something, and you know, friends are all out, everyone's doing it, you want to be a part of the gang. We talk about peer pressure a lot, but I think it's about that desire, that very, very deep desire to belong to a group, to belong to a community, that deep desire that we want to feel connected to others as well as ourselves. And I think quite often that seems to be something that I hear over and over again. I just wanted to be in the gang, I just wanted to be loved by people, I just wanted to feel accepted, I just wanted to be a part of a group. And so I joined in and found great pain relief using whatever
Yeah.
substance it was. And then obviously after some time their world equally came crashing down in dramatic ways, just like yours did. But you have just such a beautiful and happy ending to your story. I'm so glad that you've shared it, and thank you ever so much
And still going.
um, for coming on today's show and talking and sharing your story, sharing your positivity and your honesty with people. And we will be posting up information on our Radio Shield's Facebook page, links to Deep's book, and to her website, where you can find out about her courses and her workshops and the therapy and the support groups that she offers. Because you do run a support group as well, don't you? Tell us a little bit about the community that you have online.
Yeah, so the community is where I will run support groups weekly with everyone, and then occasionally I do offer some like group work where we do some 21-day teaching processes to help people to take that next step to come off of whatever substances they're using. But with the community itself, it really is just a place to share with each other, to have that support with each other. I also share my stories as well, because I know it takes some time for people to actually open up and really become vulnerable. I have loads of free stuff on there. I'm always putting up free units and things for people, coaching them, teaching them about themselves. I do Facebook Lives once a week to kind of either teach you something, or actually you can ask me questions and I'll help you tune into like, where did you first start? But essentially I give you bites of information, but also it is focused around self-awareness as well. Self-awareness is the key to everything, I feel. So it's I teach about self-awareness. There's some spirituality in there, and it's really about learning about yourself more. You know, oftentimes I find most people have the answers within themselves, and with addiction it's just about wanting that connection and that support, and that's what I offer: connection and support and self-awareness. And if you just come along, and I guarantee that you'll learn something, and you will shift when you're ready to. And a lot of the time people don't need me or anyone else. They often do it by themselves, and usually it's at the right time. And it may just be that friendship, or that piece of awareness, that contact, or that realization that actually, why am I doing this? You know, why am I doing this? So this community is really for you to connect with like-minded people, to grow in yourself and your spirituality, your self-awareness, whatever that may be.
So if this is resonating with you today, reach out, ask for help, perhaps join a community, reconnect with yourself, look at sort of finding the root cause of wounds. And there's so many different paths, different routes that you can take to the kind of life that Deep has now, that kind of happy, joyous and free, and just and feeling that love and that joy on a daily basis. That can be you too. It's absolutely possible. And I mean, I have seen your photograph, Deep, and you know,
Have you?
I saw that picture of you.
The before and after.
You are unrecognizable. You know, really, if you can do it, so many other people can do it as well. There's so many possibilities and so much help and support out there. If you just do what you did and just cry out for help, ask for help, and just take some small steps to becoming happy, joyous, and free. And thank you so much again for sharing with us today. It's just been absolutely amazing to have you, and we're going to play some music and continue to enjoy the festivities.
Oh, thank you so much for having me.
Oh, it's an absolute pleasure. Thank you for coming on. And we will be posting all of Dheep's information on our Radio Shills Facebook page. So look out for that. And do feel free to get in touch with her, reach out, connect, join the community, pick up some free information. Just one or two little steps in the right direction might be all you need to have that happy, joyous, and free life yourselves. So thanks for listening. And here's some music.